Happy Wednesday, and sit tight because we are going on an incredibly deep dive into the Saints' opponents. We don't have the finalized schedule yet. It's expected to come out Thursday, but we go into what games we are circling. We know their home and away opponents, and we get into the conversation that the three of us have been waiting to have. Who are the top 5 NFC quarterbacks? And we actually all agreed on who is our number one. Stay tuned for that. And also a special thank you to one of our members who is graduating at the end of the show as well.
Yeah, shout out to our guy, Brandon. Getting out of nickel, is going to be on the team full-time. Finally, been waiting for this for a long time. He can stop pretending that he's going to phonics class and doing whatever he's doing. But I'm excited to get into the show. We got some great stuff for you guys today. A lot of great topics. That quarterback list is going to be very, very interesting. Some differing opinions for sure.
Yes.
All right. And as always, we are presented by PJ's Coffee, maybe the best coffee in all of America. I don't know. You got to be the judge for that. I just tell you my truth when I talk to you on here, and that is my truth. And I'm not just saying that because they sponsor us. I really think they got the best stuff that you can find. Make sure you go check them out. All kinds of different drinks, pastries, multiple locations all throughout the city, all throughout the region. PJ's Coffee, check them out, get a drink, do what you got to do. And we are coming to you from the Better Call BADEAUX podcast studio. So if you need legal help with any of the following: car wrecks, offshore injuries, 18-wheeler collisions, Maritime Jones Act, you better call BADEAUX at 504-323-7777 or 985-303-7777 for your free consultation or case review, BADEAUXlaw.com. And we are still, as always, sponsored by Hardhide Ponchatoula Strawberry Whiskey. That is an 86 proof blend of aged wheat bourbon, American light whiskey, and fresh Ponchatoula strawberries. It is blended in New Orleans and is not for the thin-skinned. Look for it in your favorite stores, bars, and restaurants. And we are sponsored also by Ideal Market. They are a grocery store that does a lot for the community and actually recently won an award for their community work, the Peter J. Larkin Award. They are always bringing you the best quality food products at the best prices. Home of the largest variety of Hispanic and international foods you will find in the state. A hot deli that surpasses many restaurants and flavors of their authentic Hispanic dishes. Also, this is the best place to cash your check, wire money, pay bills. They are a complete customer service department like no other. And while you're out and about, check out our friends, Firehouse Subs, Veteran Boulevard location. Great people doing great stuff for the community. All right, let's get in the show.
It doesn't quite feel like Christmas yet. The season's not here, but we get a taste, right? The schedule comes out Thursday. Rookie mini camp is this weekend. This is as good as it gets for us, for fans, before training camp and before the season. I'm really looking forward to the schedule coming out. There's been a lot of buzz on where the Saints could potentially go this year, but let's start out with what is the ideal home opener for the Saints presented by Ideal Market?
I want them to play the Carolina Panthers early in the schedule. I want them to play Carolina, maybe on the road, get that road game out of the way. It can get cold in Carolina late in the season, but that feels like the tone setter of this season to me. Sometimes we will go through kind of a futile exercise of saying what's a difficult schedule and what's a good schedule, and the next thing you know, the team that wasn't supposed to be any good is 13-4. Carolina's the one that I think the Saints need to kind of put in their place and make sure you're still a year away. It'd be nice to get Bryce Young early before he's felt his footing. So ideal way to start the schedule at Carolina week 1 and take the win.
I got Carolina early in the season on my list, and for me, it's kind of like Black Friday. Like you get the flyers, you know where you're going, you're shopping. You don't really get the gifts for a couple more months, but I agree 100% on that, and I have Houston on there for the same exact reason. CJ Stroud, I would rather not see him. Let the Saints see Davis Mills and have that be as easy as possible, because these two guys could end up being good. And I think Houston's actually a team that might be a surprise team this year. I could see them winning that division. So I would rather play them early in the season if I'm the Saints, get it taken care of, get them before they find their groove, and just kind of move on from that. And an Atlanta game early too. They got a lot of weapons. People aren't going to like that. I think they have one of the more interesting offenses in the NFL. Don't necessarily have the conductor. Catch one of them games before they have a chance to figure it out.
I think the Saints would prefer to play the Falcons first and Carolina later. I think Carolina is going to be the better team than the Falcons this year. We'll see what shakes out. But one of the biggest things for the Saints that we saw last year is where the bye week falls. There were so many injuries last year, but the fact that the bye week did not come after London is just crazy to think about when you think of the time constraints of traveling and things like that. So where does the bye week need to fall this year?
Well, the bye week, you don't want that early, but even more so is travel is the key word. Like, I look at some things every year on the schedule. Where are the potential cold weather games and when? Green Bay and New England could be those potential cold weather games this year. You don't want to see those in December and January. Travel, they play at Los Angeles this year. You don't want to play at Los Angeles on Monday night and then have to play another game 6 days later. You don't want to have to play at Arizona on a Thursday night, that's for sure. You definitely don't want to go to London and then play the next week. Every single thing I look at on a schedule is the Thursday game, home or away, was worst case scenario for the Saints last year. I actually, for the first time I ever remember doing this, changed my record prediction by a game because I thought everything on the schedule went wrong. You know, the cold weather games at Cleveland, at Philly, late in the season. The travel was horrible. The Thursday night game at Atlanta, at Arizona, not getting the bye after London. Like, those are all the kind of things that I look at beyond just the opponents. And last year was the worst I've ever seen. So those are the ones I'm going to go down the list this year.
Packers game this year is the only cold weather one I think they have to worry about. Everything else is in a dome, so that's extremely advantageous. We thought it was dumb that they were playing a bye game right after London. They thought it was smart. They asked for it. That's what they wanted. They requested it from the league. They got it. Their bye ends up being in week 14. So it kind of felt like, oh, they got screwed by the league, but they screwed themselves on that. That was their own doing, and that's just kind of how it shook out. So it sounds like they probably aren't going to Germany this year, so we'll see on that. But if they do, hopefully they learn from that mistake and they don't do the same thing. The other thing to look for on this is just as far as potential pitfalls, you can have 2 Thursday games this year. Hopefully the Saints aren't one of those teams. They voted on that, I think, back in March. So not everybody's going to get a primetime game anymore, so some teams might end up with 2. So hopefully the Saints are not one of those teams with 2. I hate those Thursday games more than anything. So if you can get a Thursday opener, that's the greatest schedule thing in the world. That's the actual ideal outcome, is to play that Thursday night game. But yeah, that's definitely something to keep an eye on.
You mentioned the Germany game. We'll get some more clarity on that this week. But what do you think about these NFL games being played internationally and really just the grind of asking a player to get on a flight for potentially 11 and a half hours and then play that next week?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I understand what they're trying to do. I don't know if they've actually seen the growth that they want to see. But to Nick's point about the Saints did make that choice last year. Here's one thing I would tell the NFL they absolutely have to do is don't force teams into the decision about whether to have their bye in week 4 and week 5. Play those games later in the season and then give them the bye. The Saints had kind of an impossible choice last year. Do we want our bye with 12, 13 weeks still left in the season? Or do we not want the bye after the? Just make those games week 8, week 9, week 10, and that problem is solved, and it solves itself. So that's at least one thing they could do. But yeah, it's tough on everybody. I mean, I guess the only thing is they're spreading it around. The bad news is there's so many of those games that everybody's getting a piece of it now.
The issue, I think, last year with them asking for the bye later in the season, and it was a theme for the whole entire season, they overestimated what they were going to be. They didn't properly gauge maybe the difficulties that it was going to be, changing coaches. So pushing that bye back, I think if you were maybe being honest about it and saying, okay, we could get into this season, Dennis Allen could have some issues. We might need to recalibrate at some point early in the season to make sure we're on track in case anything goes wrong in that first little stanza. I think if you're being a little bit more realistic about that transition, maybe you do take the bye there so that you can get back on track and go forward. As far as the international thing, like, I hate going there. I hate seeing the teams go there. But when we were there last year, like, the energy of the international fan base, how strong of an international fan base the Saints had, it's kind of hard for me to hate on it because, like, there is so much joy that it brings to those people. So, like, I can't be a Scrooge here. So, like, I don't want to fly over there for work. I'm guessing a lot of players don't. But, like, once you're there, it is a special thing and you feel that energy. So, you know, if they're gonna do it, do it. It was cool to just see that last year. So I'm gonna be the full heart here on that one.
You're allowed to be a Scrooge whenever you want. They can come. I will say one positive thing about the schedule though that's coming up while we're talking about this. So we don't know yet if New England will probably be an outdoor game if they don't go to Germany.
Yeah.
But they have definitely their 8 home games: Atlanta, Indianapolis indoors, Houston, and the Rams could both be indoors. Are they both retractable roofs?
It's bad weather; they'll be closer, so they're indoors for.
They could be indoors. That actually weighed into Derek Carr's decision. So this schedule has already been a win for the Saints. Like, I think the people trying to push Derek Carr to make the choice of the Saints were saying, you can have 13 indoor games next year. That's and then a home playoff game potentially. So I think the schedule has already brought the Saints
we don't
one
have to
W.
think we knew that for sure. It was a conversation we had with people before he signed here, and that was the point they brought up.
Expand on that. What goes into a conversation like that? Because some people might think, well, that's kind of a silly decision to make, adding that factor in, but obviously it weighed, right? Derek
quarterbacks
Carr?
don't get to be free agents very often, and so. If you want to have bravado, you probably want to say, I want to go win anywhere or whatever. And look, I think their biggest competition was probably the New York Jets. And so I think people had to get in his ear. Certainly the Saints pitch, but even advisors, probably people close to him being like, look, I know you would accept any challenge. But if you're playing the NFC South and you're playing 13 games indoors, that's better than playing the AFC East and playing 13 games outdoors, most of them in cold weather. I mean, those are just facts. And I'm not saying that's what ultimately made Derek Carr's final decision, but that couldn't have hurt.
No, it was definitely. I wrote a story about the decision and everything that went into it, just that process. And yeah, they went through, they counted the dome games this year, and it was something that they looked at and they said, okay, like he's going to succeed in these games. His numbers will be better in them. In New York, there's going to be wind, there's going to be snow. That's going to just make it harder to play quarterback. So it was something, as you are doing your list of pros and cons, that is absolutely something that ends up in a pro list. And on the con list, it was New York weather. And I mean, it isn't that he was scared of it, but if you are making a decision on what's going to be best for me, my career longevity, I want to go somewhere and make this be my last stop. Like, indoor games is a huge selling point for quarterbacks.
He might question that once training camp rolls around and he gets a little dose of this humidity.
We didn't talk about that on the rookie minicamp show. That is the one prediction. I think it's 18 years running, or however many rookie minicamps I've been to, it's always the hottest weekend of the NFL season. Like, there's just some perfect, OTAs, whatever. Everybody always comes to New Orleans and they're like, what did I do?
I hate it. I hate the first question every time. It's hot out here, huh? Yeah, it's effing hot out here. Shut up, like you say.
Take a look at the media. We're drenched. We do not look good on camera right when we're stepping off the field. But hey, it's not Millsaps. It could be worse.
I'll tell you what, this will be a topic for another day. I'm almost surprised Dennis Allen didn't take him to Millsaps this year.
I know.
Because last year they got off to such a slow start. Again, what they overestimated the schedule. I thought their camp was really easy on the veterans, light on the workload, sort of a continuation of the way things used to be. I think that'll change. But if somehow Dennis Allen is back for like a third year and that's still a problem, we will all have to get our Jackson, Mississippi hotel. They will be back at Millsaps. That'll be the press the button if needed.
Not even that. They're going to Costa Mesa too. So it is going to be a comfortable training camp that depends on what is put in place in camp. It might be a little more rigorous. We expect it to be at least a little more rigorous this time go around than it was last year. But again, it's not Millsaps. And to go off your point, I was also surprised. I didn't think they would go back to Millsaps, but I expected maybe a place where the guys would be challenged in a different way. These are NFL vets, and I know that this roster is guys that are a little bit older, so that ask is a lot, especially when these guys, most of the veterans that are established on the team are the older guys. But do we see a Millsaps in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I hope not. If things don't go well, I think you start to shake it up. Dennis Allen's, he knows about the Junction Boys and all that. Like, he can make things a little bit harder on them if they need to. Look, Gail Benson wouldn't be afraid in investing in that either. Like, if there's one thing she'll do, she'll spend on success. So if there's a good reason for it, absolutely. So if things got stale here, I could see it. No question about it.
I will say this. Funny enough, talking to people privately about last season, that was not high on their list of things. To me, I thought it'd be number one, approach the offseason with more urgency. But I still think they will. I think maybe they just weren't admitting to me in those conversations. I think they will. But we had Tyrann Mathieu sitting in this seat last week, and he pointed out that already he's noticed from talking to people that there's more guys around in April. I think a season like that motivates you all on its own, even if the coach isn't setting.
Yeah.
Right. Well, we know the impression Millsap's left on a lot of these players. We interviewed, if you guys remember, John Stinchcomb over Zoom, and you could feel the anger come through the camera of just the challenge and how hard it was on these guys. I mean, I think the best way to describe it is they were pissed the entire training camp. Obviously, it worked out heading into the season with kind of that dog mentality, but man, you talk to any of those guys and it is not a happy memory by any means.
No, it is a war story memory for everybody involved in
Almost a sore subject too.
Yeah, look, West Virginia kind of is that too for people. And I don't even think that was the setting. I just think those teams are terrible.
Yeah,
they don't have good players,
for a different reason.
So yeah, but the curse of West Virginia exists. Millsap's led to success, but I prefer it to be on Airline Drive. Win your games, go play. Everybody comes home. I'm sure the players feel that way too. So hopefully they don't have to go and try to.
Well,
find
here's
a way
the
to
other
make things
thing.
harder.
2009, they win the Super Bowl. Was the first year they came back to Metairie after 3 years at Millsaps, and then after their 3-year West Virginia curse, 2017, one of the greatest seasons in Saints history, was their first year back to Metairie. So Metairie can work. You just, you need to.
We'll see what happens. With this finalized schedule is not out yet, but we do have the list of home and away games. Here's the list of home games: Lions, Titans, Jaguars, Bears, Giants. Away games include Colts, Vikings, Rams, Packers, Patriots, Texans, and of course the other NFC South teams mixed in there. One of the ones that I'm going to be circling too is the Titans game. Tajay Spears getting drafted there. I think he has a chance to see the field. They've got a young quarterback coming in, and Derrick Henry is one of those guys they like to offload some of that work, and I think Tajay Spears will get a lot of that and could have success in Tennessee. I know the Saints fans hope that is not when it is in the Superdome. I know I actually spoke with all the Spears family, and they can't wait to be here in the Dome for that game. But what are some of the games that you guys are circling?
I'm excited about all of them, honestly. I mean, but the big one for me, Green Bay. I think Green Bay is always a great trip. That's not as exciting without Aaron Rodgers there. There aren't like a lot of headlining games here where you're like, man, I'm going to be excited about them playing this particular person, because a lot of these teams stink, like on paper. Right now, I saw something the other day where I said like the Saints might have the easiest schedule in NFL history, like on the strength of schedule and just the circumstances overall. There's not a lot of really premier games. So I'm excited to go to Green Bay because I like going to Green Bay. It's one of those historical venues. I'm excited about going to the Rams because we haven't been there yet. We were supposed to go there COVID season, preseason, and that got canceled. So there's not a lot here, like as far as like these are the premier games of the season. So I'm cool with it.
What's interesting to me is, I mean, you've been on that, like looking at this schedule. I know someone else pointed out the quarterbacks on the schedule don't look, it always happens though that there's the teams you don't expect. And so some of the ones on this schedule, I think the Saints aren't completely win the NFC South or bust. I think their best path to success is win the NFC South, but their schedule is full of the teams that they can't let pass them up. The Detroit Lions, the New York Giants, the Packers with Jordan Love, the Rams trying to get the band back together with a healthy Matthew Stafford. They like play the entire middle tier of the NFC this year, and they need to prove they're better than that.
That
tier.
Middle tier is like the upper tier, though. The NFC is so bad.
The NFC is a middle tier.
I got a question for everybody. How many primetime games do we think they end up with? They can have 5.
Derek Carr helps.
Yeah,
Derek Carr helps. I think 4 or 5 is a good range.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say 3 to 4, so 3.5. I'm at 3.5, or you got the over, the under on 3.5.
It's been dropping off, man. It like if it's 4 or more, that would surprise me, but I guess it would also go to the. I mean, first of all, every primetime game is going to have AFC teams. How many primetime games will the NFC get? Period this year, but they are they've become one of the marquee teams in the NFC. This is going to be a topic we're talking about. Is Derek Carr one of the 4 more famous quarterbacks in the NFC now? So I'll take the 3.5 is a good over under. I would take the under. I don't expect 4 or more.
Yeah, I guess the quality opponent factors into that too a little bit.
Yeah.
Like the Jags game could be on there. I think maybe the Lions game, Vikings, I guess, just because there's some rivalry. I don't know. It's going to be interesting. But yeah, Derek Carr, I think definitely without Derek Carr, I would have said like 1.
And it doesn't help, too, that Aaron Rodgers went to the Jets. If this was an offseason where Derek Carr was the marquee quarterback that moved, it'd be a little different. And we're going to continue to break down this schedule once it comes out. But since we're talking about quarterbacks, we've been holding on to this topic. Top NFC quarterbacks. We're going to bring you our list, our top 5. Can't have a rookie. Mike, let's start with you.
Well, Aaron Rodgers is out. Made it the perfect time to do this. All right, so what order are we going in? Am I giving you my whole list? Or are we all doing our number
Start
one?
Start at the bottom and work up.
All right.
Or I'm sorry. Let's go 1 to 5 because I think we all know who all of our ones are going to be. Can we all say that?
Jalen
Hurts.
Hurts.
Yeah, okay.
Which is crazy. Would we have, if we were sitting here 12 months ago, Jalen Hurts was like a question mark. That trade that the Saints made with the Eagles was in part so the Eagles would have an extra first-round pick in case they moved on from Jalen Hurts.
Well, look, our conversations, if you rewind a year, we're kind of like, well, how do they stop these quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts? And it was kind of said in like a disingenuous way because he was just an okay guy that kind of ran a little bit and made things happen. I'll tell you what, that Super Bowl performance was one of the best performances I've ever seen in my life. I covered Tom Brady for 5-6 years. Like, that performance is literally like, if I had to make a list of top 5 games I've ever seen, it's up there. Like, he was unbelievable in the Super Bowl.
And that's credit to Jalen Hurts and the moves he made this offseason to improve in the passing game. I think that kind of goes unnoticed. I mean, that doesn't just happen overnight. He didn't just have this dream season because he woke up one day and it just all came into place. There was a lot of offseason work. Credit to his passing game coach as well, and able to get to 1. Okay, so we've got 1.
Yep.
Let's get the list.
All right. It already gets tough here. I hate this list from now. I texted Nick at one point. I said, you could make a case. I said it about one specific person, and then I finished by saying, you could actually say this. There are people I could put 2nd or 9th. Like, there really are. But I'm going to go both my number 2 and my number 3 for a reason. They just feel like they're the most established in their place right now. I've got Dak Prescott number 2. I don't feel great about it, but I feel like he's the best combination of he's been with his team for X amount of years, plus still has a high ceiling. Like,
I wish we were on the 3 shot there.
Yeah,
like
Brooke didn't like my choice.
Brooke had a physical
Brooke
reaction.
didn't like my choice.
Keep pushing. We're good. We'll get to it. I'll let you finish.
Yeah. No, but look, I don't feel great about it. I feel like you could make a case that the Cowboys should consider moving on from Dak Prescott, like what the Raiders just decided to do with Derek Carr. Like, maybe it's never going to happen with Dak Prescott, but I've seen enough glimpses and I feel good enough about the continuity there that if in any way this is a predictive list of who do I think is going to have the best 2023 season, I think I like his chances of having a better 2023 season better than anyone else we're going to list today.
I only say that because, number one, I did not like how they attacked the draft. I don't think the Cowboys went into the draft thinking, how can we build around Dak Prescott? And the NFL is a what have you done for me lately league. And Dak Prescott has had the key pieces. He's had the star wide receivers. He's had the star running back. Yeah, there have been some issues on the offensive line. That happens with every NFL team. But Dak Prescott, I actually really like the quarterback. He just hasn't done anything with all of that talent. Yep. He has a lot of talent. He has a lot of arm talent. But he's just one of those guys I think that's just going to get lost in the mix. Kind of like Tony Romo did. I hate to say it.
His playoff performances haven't been great. His most recent playoff performance was especially bad. It's hard to give him number 2 on this list after the last game we saw of him.
Yeah, right? My notes in entirety on Dak, I have him 3rd on my list. I said solid player. That's it. Solid player. He gets stuff done in the regular season. He hasn't done anything in the postseason. The problem with the NFC field of quarterbacks is after Jalen Hurts is there's one guy that recently got something done in the postseason. There's another, and then there's just a bunch of guys that just have never really gotten it done. 1
Super Bowl winner in the NFC. 1. And only 3 who have appeared in a Super Bowl.
Yeah, it's a tough list of players. Yeah, it's a lot of underachieving here. So how do we want to do this?
Well, okay, you mentioned that Dak is 3. Are we to assume Dak is not on your list?
Dak is not on my list.
All right.
So I'll just give you my list outright, and then we'll bounce off you guys. So I've got Jalen at 1. I think just based on what he was able to do in this again, I wouldn't have had him as my 1 in NFC rankings, excluding rookies as well. I wouldn't have had him last year based on the jumps that he made. He was 2nd in the NFC in rushing touchdowns, 7th in NFC passing touchdowns. He had the 2nd highest QBR. I mean, he's one of those guys that made the necessary steps, and I think he is going to get the Eagles back to the Super Bowl this year.
Oh, okay.
Early prediction. And my 2, which I know not a lot of people might agree with me, is Matthew Stafford. We talk about like, what have you done for me lately? He did win a Super Bowl with the Rams and then kind of had the hangover year in year 2 with the Rams, which I think people forget. I mean, that's kind of expected. It happens unless you're the Kansas City Chiefs and you're Patrick Mahomes. But we're not talking about the AFC quarterbacks here because I'm pretty sure, would rank above every single guy on this list except Jalen Hurts. So Matthew Stafford is my number 2. Kirk Cousins is my number 3 based on just his completion percentage and yards. He's somebody who is the okay guy. You know what you get out of him. And based on that, he's my number 3. Kyler Murray, I know I kind of have him high as 4. A lot of people might not have him in their top 5. He's a dynamic quarterback that I think is only going to get better in Arizona. We'll see what happens there. And then I have Derek Carr at 5. He's someone that is still proving that he's the guy. If he can do that with the Saints, I see him moving up all the way to 1 or 2. I don't think he passes Jalen. If Jalen is able to continue to do what he did in last year and then into this year, and they don't have the Super Bowl hangover. So we'll see what happens. But what's your list?
So yeah, look, I'm a Kyler Murray believer. I think that he gets too much crap. I think the stuff that they put in his contract just poisoned the way everybody thinks about him. Before they put that provision in about him having to study and all that, I think everybody in this room and everybody outside of this room was looking at him like someone that could be a potential MVP. He played last year, didn't get along with the head coach. A lot of his teammates start saying things. So there is off-field stuff that is a major issue. But if we're doing NFC quarterbacks and you're telling me I got to pick one that I want for this season and I'm taking beyond, even if it is just this season, I like Kyler's upside probably more than anybody in the division. What's he do? He gets 3,700 yards passing every year, 25 TDs, throws 10 interceptions, completes 69% of his passes, runs for 400 yards, runs for 5 touchdowns. I got him second on my list. So you're not too high on him. I might be the guy that's too high on him. And I'm sure people are yelling at their TV right now, but that's where I'm at with it. I think he's better than all these other guys. Like, that's just where he's at, I think, in his career. So if they figure things out, I think Arizona has a ton to figure out. But I think Kyler Murray's a good football player. So I would buy in on him totally. Dak, 3rd, solid player. 4th, I got Stafford here. I know there's a possibility that maybe we saw some stuff last year that's a little bit concerning, but I'm like you. I got to see him fall off before I take him off the list completely. Same reason I don't have Justin Fields on my list. We saw it one time. I need to see it again. I just don't think that there's enough evidence there to really make a strong case for Stafford being outside of the top 5. So I got to respect the guy that's done it. And then my number 5, this is the bar. This is the bar into the top 5. And I'm sorry, Derek Carr, I got to see it. You got to go do it. Kirk Cousins is the bar into the top 5. I think he is the guy.
That's fair.
When we talked about it all offseason, it was Carr can be a Kirk Cousins level player with the Saints. And if he's this is what they can be. I got to see him be that Kirk Cousins level player with the Saints before I can put him above Kirk Cousins. So the standard is set. Go beat it.
I have one huge problem with your list.
I'm sure you have many.
You wrote solid next to your number 3 quarterback.
Yeah.
Kirk Cousins should have a trademark on the word solid.
He should.
If Kirk Cousins isn't solid, what is he?
Yeah.
What's worse than solid?
Dak's like solid plus.
Okay.
But not by much.
Yeah,
I mean, that
not by much.
margin, he's not done anything to just wow us all.
Yeah, and honestly, like, I almost kind of wish I could go back and put Stafford above Dak right now. I'm going to leave my list alone, but like,
right.
I'm still tinkering a little bit. But
The only given on this list, look, your number 2, Matthews, and my number 2, Dak, not on your list. Your number 2, Stafford, not on my list for a different reason, which I'll explain. Your number 2, Kyler, like the only thing we can agree on is that Kirk Cousins belongs at the. Kirk Cousins is solid. Yep. You're either above solid or you're below
no
solid.
question.
I will say for Dak Prescott, we do need to mention the number of injuries that he has had.
Yeah.
I don't think any of the other quarterbacks have had as significant as injuries that Dak has had. So to his credit, he's been solid despite the injuries. So credit to him.
Yeah, I put Dak 2, but I think there is definitely a tier that Dak and Cousins and I think Derek Carr are all in. Dak to me had a higher upside, and had that the fact that he's got continuity. So Kirk Cousins is my number 3. He's hit his upside. I think he's hit his ceiling. I don't feel like there is an untapped upside with Kirk Cousins, but he's been doing it. Derek Carr, that's the perfect comp for him. Kirk Cousins, I don't even think people realize some of these numbers. His passer rating, for whatever you feel about that stat, 99.7 this last year when they finally won all those games and they were the number 2 seed in the NFC. Year before that, 107.4. Year before that, 105.0. Year before that, 103.1. I mean, give me a guy he's just doing it year in and year out, and everyone kind of thinks that's not enough. And it's not enough. You need to be better than that. But if that's what Derek Carr is going to do and make the Saints relevant, that would be great. Like, Kirk Cousins has set that bar. You said that perfectly. I put Kyler Murray 4th. I think if he hadn't torn his ACL late in the season, I mean, he had his surgery in January. Part of this is a current ranking. I don't think there's any way he's going to have a better season. The coaching change, the turmoil from last year, coming off injury, might even miss time into the regular season. I mean, there was almost an argument where I kept him off my list entirely, but I agree. Nobody else, he's proven more than anyone else we could put next on the list. And then I had Carr 5th. I really believe in the potential for Carr to play his best football here. So I don't think it is, us looking through, black and gold glasses. I looked at a lot of lists last year before Carr had the down year. He was ranked ahead of all these guys. He was ranked ahead of Cousins. Some people had him ranked ahead of Dak. That's the level he was on until he had a down year. I think everything about the Saints and how he fits in this offense and the reasons he chose here, it's like John Gruden's offense, the things they're going to let him do at the line of scrimmage, hopefully healthy playmakers to work with here. I think he really has the opportunity to get in with that tier. The one name I hated leaving off this list, though, was Justin Fields, because I know he doesn't deserve to be on it, but I guarantee you if we somehow could plug a thermometer into the fans of all these teams, I bet there's more excitement among Bears fans for Justin Fields than there is Vikings fans for Cousins, Cowboys fans for Dak. Certainly.
To be fair, though, there was more excitement for Jameis than half the guys on this list last year.
And
so that doesn't mean anything.
But he's really electrified that. If the Saints traded for Justin Fields, I'd be more excited about the Saints. And that's another barometer for this. That's why I didn't feel bad leaving Matthew Stafford off the list. If the Saints had made this Derek Carr deal for Matthew Stafford, I would have genuinely been less enthusiastic. I think Matthew Stafford feels about tapped out. I feel like he's in the Russell Wilson category for me. It might be done. It might have happened that fast, but he's a little older. I think power to the Rams for having that magical season, but he is definitely trending this way, whereas Fields is trending this way, which makes a difficult list.
But to be fair too, the Bears are still the worst team in the league.
Yeah,
with this
no,
guy.
it's true. It's true.
And I did
leave
he's
him off the
electrifying
list.
and he runs the ball well, but they weren't a good football team. So I think winning has to be a factor at some point. So Fields wasn't even a consideration for me, but could he be top 5 at the end of the season? Yeah, absolutely. Look, I think Carr could get as high as 2nd on this list. Carr could end up being the best player in the NFC if the Eagles struggle to build a team around Hurts and there's just a deterioration. I think any of these guys, it's fluid enough. I think I'd feel pretty comfortable keeping Hurts first, but I could see Carr being better than everybody else on my list. No question.
And I want to get into something that you mentioned earlier, kind of this Derek Carr, Pete Carmichael duo and why that played such a big part in Derek Carr coming here. You wrote that long column about some of the things of why it makes sense and what Derek Carr is now going to be allowed to do and kind of holding on to the reins a little bit in the decision making. Mike, why do you think it will work with Pete Carmichael, especially when so many fans wanted to see Pete go? Why can Derek Carr work in this offense with him as the offensive coordinator?
I mean, it really is. I mean, it's not apples to apples, but it really is pretty similar to what John Gruden tries to do with his offense, and that's when Derek Carr had his best success. That's when everyone finally saw it with Derek Carr coming together. And the things that he wasn't really allowed to do last year with Josh McDaniel, the things that he likes to do, the things the Saints want him to do, which is giving him 2, sometimes 3 plays at the line of scrimmage, letting him read the defense. Everyone agrees that is a strength of his, the way he sees the field, how smart he is, his processing ability, the choices he makes. And they're going to say, that's what we want you to do. He feels, that's probably the main reason he chose the Saints. That's how he wants to play the quarterback position, and he's going to get that opportunity here. We already talked earlier about he's going to be playing in a dome. He's going to be playing against weaker competition. If Derek Carr doesn't move himself into the top 3 on a list like that, he couldn't have a better opportunity to do that than he's going to have here.
Yeah, he should definitely thrive within this offense. I think it allows him to get back to what they were good at. You can roll it back now. It's even pre-2017. Like there are various stanzas of this offense, and there was the Drew Brees style offense that I thought was really good for a long time, and then they couldn't do it anymore. 2016, like the most fascinating thing, if you go, like I charted every pass he threw at one point, and like you could just see the fall off specifically in that 2016 season. Like he couldn't hit out routes beyond a certain point. So they had to change up the offense and do things completely differently. They had to reimagine it. Brandon Cooks gets ushered out. They go more run heavy. Like I think you can roll it back more to what it was before the 2017 season, but also incorporate a lot of the elements that they figured out worked well with that timing based offense, some of the shorter stuff, stack them together and kind of build like a mutant version of this offense around the two ideals and get the best of both worlds. Because I think Carr can operate all of it. His arm strength is incredibly underrated. I don't think people realize how far he can throw the ball down the field with velocity. So there's things there that I think are going to open things up for Olave and Shaheed. And then, look, I think that just some of the shorter stuff, like he's good at that stuff too. So I like what they're going to be able to do. Pete Carmichael knows all these things. One of the things he was asked to do last year was kind of like reimagine an offense around the quarterback that didn't really fit their ideals from before. So I think just making it easier on them. But look, I don't think it was just like they looked into their options this offseason and they settled on what they thought were their best options at offensive coordinator. So it wasn't like they were just blindly running it back. We very clearly saw that Dennis Allen evaluated everything from his offensive coordinators to defensive coordinators. Same process ran with Pete Carmichael. They thought it was the best bet to keep him, so they did. I think he has a ton to prove, though.
Well, it's only a matter of time. We'll see him on the field pretty soon. Before we go, Brandon, keep us on the 3-shot here. Get over here. We got to congratulate our guy.
No.
He is
The schoolboy.
graduating.
We got the schoolboy.
From Nichols. We got the Dream Southland Conference team here. I went to Lamar, if you guys didn't know.
Nichols grind.
We're excited to have him now more full-time. And Nick can get into a little bit. Just like the talent this guy has. He's the one that is putting a lot of this together. DJ is joining our team too from remote with some of the graphics. Guys, we're building something special, and this guy's a big part of it.
Incredibly proud of Brandon. He came on as an intern, went to the wrong coffee shop on Magazine
Wow.
Street. We ended up in the right place eventually. And that was kind of the story of the first year, man. But like Brandon, man, how you've come along, how you've grown into everything, what we're building together, you being kind of, they can see how good the show has looked the last couple of weeks since we kind of got you back in the fold, doing everything that you can do, unleashing you. I'm excited to see where it goes, but I couldn't be more proud of how you grow, man. And I'm just so excited to just keep building this company with you.
Appreciate y'all, man. I'm happy to be a part of the family. Let's get this thing running, man.
Yeah.
You were a founding member of the family. We're the ones who joined the family.
Right.
You know, I was in school. I was out of pocket for a little while, but back in the fold now.
Yeah.
Let's get this thing going.
Well, we're going to figure out if we can figure out a Brandon camera soon. But thank you guys so much for joining us on another episode of NewOrleans.Football. We'll have more for you this week.